Hi everyone, this is Leanne and this is From the Heart. And today I have Chandra on again because her previous episode was just so good. And number two is because when she was speaking, I was realizing that she had a hard birth with her first. Like I know that because I was there. But when she was speaking, I realized that she had processed it really well, was not making decisions from that place of fear and that place of what happened is gonna, she wasn't making decisions from that. And I'm like, whoa, we need to, I want to know more about how you processed your birth, because we live in a world where we just are manipulated by fear. That's like on the media, the news, the everything. But also when we're receiving care, even if someone's not meaning to manipulate us, we might be manipulating ourselves based on what we've heard, what has happened before, what has happened to our moms, what has happened to our grandmothers. And those are really very different times than ours. And so I want to encourage people to if they are in fear, like if they're processing something, that you get to process it and you get to evolve and change. And then if you do have a difficult birth, what are the tools that maybe help Chandra? And then maybe that can influence and help you in your process as well. So Chandra, welcome back. We also have Radar.
I know, we have Radar. He's my guest today. He's an excellent guest. Yes, he'll be joining us today. But I'm so happy to be here again. I just love chatting with you.
I know, it's so much fun, Chandra. Do you wanna just give us like a little introduction, just in case people haven't listened to the first episode, who you are? Yeah,
absolutely. So my name is Chandra, and I met Leanne when my first baby was born. She's going to be 9 next week. So Leanne was my midwife for my first baby, and then I had my second baby, Tessa. So those are my own 2 babies. And then I was lucky enough to carry, as a gestational surrogate, 2 babies for my friends. So I have had 4 birthing and pregnancy journeys, 2 of my own and 2 as a surrogate.
Super. And then, do you want to tell us about your pregnancy and how you made decisions and the things that helped you prep for birth?
Yeah, and I knew nothing about midwives before Tessa. She was my first pregnancy, and it was really the reason I went to a midwife was my nurse practitioner, who's my primary care provider. She had really bad access. She was like, I can follow you, but I really recommend a midwife. I was like, oh, great. I'll go to a midwife. And I got paired with Leanne, which was just serendipitous and so meant to be. And was just blown away by the care that midwives give. It was just from day one, it was just absolutely beautiful. And everything was textbook perfect. It was our first baby. We were so happy, and everything was fantastic. And then around 32 weeks, 34 weeks, we discovered something, and it kind of just changed the last bit of our pregnancy. And it was just, there was a bit of sort of unknown with, what was going to happen. But we had really excellent communication. I remember I left an ultrasound appointment, and you either called or text me to be like, hey, did you get the info? It was just such great transfer of information and all of that. So there's a bit of unknowns leading up to when Tessa was born, and just sort of they were seeing some flags, not sure what it meant, if it meant anything, that type of thing. But really excellent care leading up to the birth. And then it was a hard delivery. I was induced because Tessa, being herself, did not want to come out. She was cozy in there. So we did a medical induction with the oxytocin. I think that's the word to use. We did that, and then she just has her father's head, a very, very large head, and she just wouldn't come out. And I remember you were so wonderful, and you kept saying, you can do this. They're so close. And I just said, I can't do it anymore. And then, so we got, an OB came in to help vacuum her out, and we got her out. And then she was totally wonderfully perfect. Absolutely perfect. And I don't know, do you want me to go into everything right away? Okay, perfect. I'm okay to talk about this. Absolutely. Everything was perfect. And then because we had had some flags during pregnancy, we had a peds assessment the day that she was born, and that was planned. So this pediatrician, not a pediatrician, but someone at the MO4 came in and was doing an assessment, and she was looking at Tessa, and she was 16 hours old. I remember she was looking at Tessa, and she was asking questions, and I didn't clue in at first that she was seeing signs, and she was asking me things about those signs. She was bicycling, which is sort of a repeated motion with the leg, and then she vomited green bile, and then the physician said, I think she's having a seizure, and she walked out of the room with her, and then everything changed so quickly. And we had no idea. I was like, I don't understand what just happened, to be totally honest. And you were there, which was so perfect that you were there at the same time, because you were doing your 12-hour check on me. And we had no idea what was happening. And I kind of play it like a movie in my head. Like I remember every single detail, but it almost doesn't feel real. So we went to the NICU that they have at the MOFA, and we went there and we did some things. And the next thing I know, we were in an ambulance. Well, we actually weren't allowed in the ambulance. They had transferred her in a transport vehicle, and we had to drive behind the ambulance on our way to CHIO. And it's like this movie that started, and I was sort of a player in it. Like it almost didn't feel real. And it just so happened that our family was able to meet Tessa that day before all this chaos happened, because we were like, this is the most beautiful, wonderful, perfect baby that's ever existed. Like, this is fantastic. And our family met them. And then when everything happened and we went to CHIO, we made the very purposeful and very conscious decision we told people that we went home and that we were at home with Tessa. We didn't tell them we went to CHIO because we didn't know what was happening, and everything was kind of this big black box. And so we said, we're just at home. We're not taking visitors right now. But we were at CHIO, and that was a really, really good decision. I don't know that we just came to it so quickly, and we've never obviously talked about that kind of thing. Like, if something happens, what are we doing? But my husband and Brian, we both came to that decision very quickly and very together. And it was the best decision to have us just sort of be in this very sort of unknown place, but just together and without a lot of noise. Like, we just had you were checking on us, which was just the most amazing thing. And then we were at CHIO, and we had, all the different layers that were happening, the steps that were being taken, but it was just us. And it was really nice, actually. Like, I'm very proud of us for that decision, because we were 16-hour new parents ourselves, and we had no idea what we were doing. And it was a lot of unknown. Like, it was sort of like, we have no idea what's about to happen. We have no idea what's happening. We just know that we were bliss, an hour ago, and now we're here. So I'm really proud of us for that decision. And it might not be for everyone, but that was absolutely the right thing. And we were there for a few days, and we kept that as our ruse of like, nope, we're at home. We're just not taking visitors. And we were at CHIO.
Mm-hmm. What happened at CHIO?
So we did a few different things. The physicians were absolutely wonderful there. And we had you and Mel, who was the resident midwife at the time. We had just the most amazing care. What ended up happening is they did a few tests. I think it was on the MRI that they had discovered that Tessa had a stroke. And that explained the seizure. So the seizure had been a symptom of the stroke. And she'd had a stroke. And once we knew that, honestly, they sent us home shortly after that. They did some bilirubin tests to make sure that the bleeding from the stroke was under control and sort of not having any negative impact. But they sent us home, and they said, she's had a stroke. We essentially are just going to follow up to see what the outcome of that stroke is. But that's what's happened. And in those moments, and then for a very long time after, we asked, why did it happen? And there is no answer. And there's different things that you could look at to say because of X, Y, and Z, but essentially it is one of those things that happens, whatever it is, 1 in a billion chance. And it happened to us. But even to this day, there is no reason that it happened. And I do think it's important to know Tessa is completely okay. She is the most amazing, wonderful kid in the whole world. There's absolutely zero impact from the stroke to her today. Zero. And we know that now. But for a long time, we did a massive amount of monitoring and testing and sort of things to see the stroke happen. We don't know why. We still don't know why. But what is the impact of that? So we spent 4 years. We graduated in, it was February 2021, I think, that we graduated from the neonatal follow-up program. And they said she is 100% absolutely normal in every single way.
Yeah, I just want to like
I kind of jumped around a bunch there.
So going back to the ultrasound in pregnancy, when we do ultrasounds in pregnancy, there's a lot of false positives, and sometimes we see something that we don't see in other babies, but we don't know the significance of it on the pregnancy. And then I just also want to say, like, I know you kind of skimmed over your birth, but your birth was a long, and it was long, and I don't have a very high rate of vacuum, and no one really does, but and I just, in case people are putting the two together, I've seen other vacuums, and I've never seen what happened to Tessa happen to other babies with vacuums. Your birth was difficult and long. And the thing that happened with, like, for a parent, it feels like it's like something that's happening to them. And like, I also, because it's been 9 years, I don't remember all the things, but I actually, like, it kind of, I know who it was, a pediatrician who was there and saw your baby, and then like, decided to transfer your baby. We're really lucky here to be so close to, like, a tertiary care center where, like, the transfers is such a, like, it's a much easier process than in other places. And then the MRI is kind of like, and I know less about MRIs because we don't do MRIs on pregnant people, but the MRI is kind of like the ultrasound, where sometimes we see something and then we don't know, what it means and the impact and all of that as well. And so we saw a mini stroke on Tessa, and then we just had to, like, follow her, basically. Yeah. And so, like, of course, that's going to cause a lot of fear and anxieties, of course. I'm really happy that you get to, like, this also kind of shows how, like, the testing kind of works, it's
And I
not
was just
perfect.
thinking, yeah, and the reason that we had the pediatrician assess her at that moment was because of everything that we saw in utero, and that was something that was part of our plan. We don't know what these flags that we're seeing in these markers are, because of where we were in the pregnancy, the only real thing that made sense was to wait for her to arrive. And then that was the plan. The day that she was born, there was a very purposeful decision to have a pediatrician come and assess her. So, like, everything worked out the way, like, the care that we had was so lined up to, we obviously didn't know she was going to have a stroke, and no one knew that. But the way that the care had been lined up was so perfect for what was happening. Like, it was the system worked. Like, it was beautiful. It was, and we had such amazing care. Yeah, the stroke didn't happen because of the vacuum. We don't know why it happened, but we had every piece in place to take care of us within. And it was so great to see, like, you as a midwife working with the physicians at CHIO, right? And just the way that we had almost like double or triple layers of care in every way. And but yeah, it wasn't because of any of the care that we received or lack of care. In fact, I think the care that we had caught it when maybe it may not have been caught or seen in a different type of scenario. Like, it was just sort of very perfect how everything happened, even though we wish it didn't happen. The system helped protected us and helped us to take care of her.
Mm-hmm. There are clients who sometimes have, like, a very normal, like, to the external person, a very normal birth, even like a textbook home birth, wherever it happened, whether it's at home or at the hospital or the birth center. Some people feel that that their birth is abnormal, but I just want to ask you, or they're affected by, like, what has happened or how it felt to be in labor. What helped you kind of like after the birth, and actually in pregnancy? Was there anything that you did for yourself to prep? It could be a birth plan, it could be courses or books, like whatever. And then what did you do also? And it will, like, what helped you kind of cope and you manage, what had happened, that stress that happened, when with your birth and then with Tessa and all of that?
During like leading like pregnancy with Tessa, I was very much like, here's, what would be ideal, but also we're just going to see like we're just going to go with it. And I felt like I had excellent care, very informed care. Like I knew I had choices. My first goal was to avoid a C-section, but also, knowing that sometimes things happen and that's okay. Yeah, we didn't do any courses. We were just sort of like, we can prepare all we want, but also I don't know that we can prepare anything. So we, but I feel like having midwifery care was like having prenatal classes. Like I just feel like we had so much information that was so helpful and so targeted and just personalized. Like it was just so great. Like that was really the prep that we needed. And maybe if we hadn't had that, we would have felt differently. Like we would have maybe said, oh, we need a class or something, which, and I know that those can be really helpful for folks, but I feel like you were our class, like between you and Mel, it was just so helpful. We felt massively informed the entire time. Like I felt like I was taking a course on how to have a baby. It was very helpful. And when things like when we saw certain flags, like we would, you would go and be like, okay, this is what, I've looked into it. This is what this could mean. Right. Like it felt, yeah, like we were in a course the whole way and we just had such excellent care. And then after Tessa's birth, because it was a difficult birth, and then everything that happened afterwards was quite traumatizing. And a lot of what we needed was time. And I think the reason we needed time was because with Tessa's prognosis, it was a lot of let's see, like a lot of what happened after. And we spent 4 years doing follow-up for them to say she's absolutely fantastic, which we knew she was fantastic, but it was like medically normal in every single way. Because it took so long for us to be on that journey, we were sort of living in an unknown for a while. So for us, we did just need a little bit of time. And some of that was so that we could focus and just sort of get ready for whatever was happening, because we had no idea what would happen, or, and we still don't know why it happened. So some of it was, well, why did this happen? Is something else going to happen, right? Like we had no idea. So a lot of what I needed was time. And for a while I was kind of in survival mode of like, got this newborn, which is traumatizing enough to have your first newborn. Yeah, a lot of what we needed was time. And I'm glad that we did that and just sort of be in our own family for a while, and to just kind of exist within each other, and to, yeah, and just to sort of get rid of more and more unknowns as time went on. And that was the most helpful thing. And then it was so great that when we were pregnant again with Alice, which happened about 2.5, 3 years later, we went back with you and Mel. And I think that was everything. And the continuity of care in so many different medical aspects, but I feel like specifically for pregnancy and all of those pre-postnatal is so important, because I didn't have to explain my story to anyone, and I didn't have to say, here is why this is important to me. It was like you kind of knew how I worked, and it was like I love data. So it was when we were talking, like you already knew that about me, and knew how to have these conversations. And it was just so helpful not having to say like, I have these fears or these concerns or whatever it is, and already knowing that you understood them, even if, yeah, it was just that piece was so helpful. And even with Alice, we had the most beautiful, perfect, easy birth that's ever existed. but just knowing too that that was sort of an extra thing to celebrate, right? Just like we made it.
Mm.
Having all of that, I feel like gave really beautiful closure and to helped us heal. Even like I thought I was done sort of mentally healing from Tessa, but then to have that happen and to have all of us together again, like it was actually so nice. It was like a good sort of bookend to those. Like we went through it all together.
Yeah. So your student that became a midwife with
Oh yes, yeah.
her and I, we were like, we're not missing this birth. Like it's gonna be the two of us again, and we're gonna go. And it, because we're humans and we want everything to be perfect for our clients. Like when things aren't, we just want to see the end of it, basically, And so I hope you're okay with me saying this.
Yeah.
That you had an unplanned home birth.
Unplanned. I call it an accidental home birth. Yes, it was an accidental home birth.
Yeah, I got to you when you started to push, I think.
Yeah. And I was trying to deny that I was pushing because I was like, we're going to go to the hospital. You're like, no, we're not. I was like, oh, okay. But it was so perfect. You were the most calm human I've ever seen. It was so beautiful and so perfect. But I remember when we were pregnant with Alice, and we had you guys again. We were so happy to have you as our midwives. I had multiple people say, you're going back with midwives again, like after everything that happened with Tessa. And I made it very clear in every single conversation. And now I make it very clear when I even talk about Tessa that the care that we received is not the reason that anything happened to Tessa or a lack of care or anything. Like, if anything, the care that we had because of midwifery and because of everything, I think probably helped more than in another scenario that would have happened maybe if we hadn't had midwifery care. But I had a lot of folks who, for whatever reason, associated what happened with poor care, and that is 100% not what happened, and never what I thought would happen. So I'm very mindful now in how I share Tessa's story, to make sure that it's known. Like, no, this is not what I feel either. Like 100%, I have no doubt in my mind that the care that we received is not because of anything that happened. It happened because it happened, and I wish I had an answer for why it happened, but we don't. And I've come to peace with that because it's so, having answers is so great, and I love data. So why did this happen? We don't know why it happened, but I absolutely don't blame the care that we had. And I make that very clear because I don't want it to color anyone's own birth when they go. Like, I don't want it to misinform the decisions that they make because of a fear that I've accidentally put on them with my story. So usually when I tell my story, I have it like with a little caveat or an asterisk, like, this isn't going to happen to you. This is a very, very unique story. I feel like everyone has their own unique story, of course. Say this is not what's going to happen. And also the reasons it happened are not because of the care or, the intervention or whatever. And it's not because of, we didn't have an OB or what have you. It's absolutely not because we didn't have an OB. That has absolutely nothing to do with it. And midwifery is everything. And of course we will go back to them because of the care and the compassion that we received. And it was just like, I've never had any medical care that is so personal and so caring. And I know that, but I make sure that it's very important that there's no fear in the care that we received because of what happened.
Yeah.
And I think that that's really important. And, it took us some time to sort of process and to manage and to be okay with what had happened, but it was never, the system failed us. And, the birth was scarier. Like it was hard. But it was never that we were not cared for.
Yeah.
That was never part of it. I always felt like we were so cared for. Like, I remember you texting me when I was in the hospital, and I don't even think you were meant to be there that day, and you said, I'm coming by, or whatever it is. Like, it was so, so helpful, and we felt so cared for, even though we were terrified. It wasn't because of the system.
Yeah. I it's unfortunate, even though, like, people say that midwives have wait lists and things. It's unfortunate that people don't know, like, what midwifery care really is. And so that's why people are saying those things, is because they don't know. And
I
then,
would completely agree. And like I I don't know too many folks who have used midwives, and that's just, what it is. I promote them like I promote midwives to every single human, but obviously no judgment. If you don't want to use a midwife, that's
or
totally fine.
can't. Sometimes we
If you,
can't,
yes,
right?
if you
Yeah.
can't, and sometimes, yes, sometimes it's an access thing. It's because there's only so many midwives to go around. And if you don't want to, that's also absolutely fine. And in our surrogacy journey, that was sort of the one thing I said, this is really important to me to use midwives, and the dads were so open to that, and they had their own boundaries within that. And I said this in the other podcast, they had no idea what midwifery care was, and one of them was actually a physician.
Mhm.
So he learned a lot about it through our own journey. Even him being in the medical system, he had no idea how amazing, like what kind of care midwives could provide. Um, so yes, I made sure that that was really important for me, that that was something I needed. And they, at the end, said, this, I'm so glad we did this. Like, we used midwives, but we had no idea. And that's something that I find is quite common. So, but it's so important, I think, to, when you're in such a, when you're going through birth and pregnancy, you're in such a, it's, it's what your body is meant to do, but also it's such a vulnerable time. And there is a lot of fear, I find, around birth and pregnancy and labor. And not that we need to like unmedicalize everything. And we still, there's so many reasons that you do need, that you should have proper care and all of that. But I think a lot of the fear, there's so much fear. Um, and I think that that can sort of darken a lot of things, and it can color the choices that people make, and maybe they make them out of the fear. So I do try to make sure that when I share my story, that I'm making it very purposeful to say, like, you shouldn't use my story to make your decisions, because I wouldn't change any of the decisions that I made. In fact, I'm more hardened in my decisions of, like, thank God we have midwifery care. And yeah, it's there's so much fear around so much. And I think it's just so important to sort of, yeah, to know all the different layers. And even if your decision is still the same in the end, of course, that's the best thing that you should be doing. But to know that, yeah, to try to maybe not make a decision in fear of, this happened, and now, okay, well, I'm never gonna, trust another midwife or an OB again, or vacuuming is what caused my baby to have a stroke. Like, that's absolutely not the case. Yeah, everyone should be afraid of vacuums because they're gonna, cause all of these things, or whatever it is. And maybe in those moments, you have that of, why did this happen? Was it because of the vacuum? And then sort of, okay, understanding it maybe a little bit more, and all the different layers that come with it. And then, yeah, it did take some time, but it was never, the OB vacuumed my baby, and that's why they have a stroke. I didn't receive enough care from the midwives, and that's why all of these things happened. And I am mad at these things, or I'm angry at them, and then that's not what happened.
Yeah.
I know that.
Yeah. It's people who can have a harder time processing their birth can get stuck in blame, and it doesn't sound like you did at all.
For a while, I'll be honest, I did blame myself. And it's interesting, I never blamed any specific thing that happened or didn't happen, but I did blame myself. And I think it's taken me a long time to get away from that, and to know that that's not the case. Like, oh, maybe if I had pushed harder, or, whatever it is. And sometimes I felt like I was always explaining, like, here's what happened, but I tried really hard before, we did all of these things, and that's not what it should be. Like, it shouldn't be anyone's. There's no fault, right? There is no blame, and I love data, so it would be great to be able to have, something to point at, to say this is why, but that isn't what happened, and it shouldn't be. And yeah, there's no blame, and there doesn't need to be in this situation, right? But when these things do happen, and you're scared and you're sleep deprived, it can help. Like, I can understand why that the doctor made a mistake. That's why this happened, right? Like I can understand how that can maybe help someone process, like, this is why it happened. Okay, so we'll get a better doctor, so next time it won't happen, or whatever it is. And I found, yeah, when we had Alice, that is what a lot of folks, if they knew our story with Tessa, they would say, I can't believe you're going with midwives again after what happened. Which, yeah, is not what it should be.
Yeah. It sounds like there are a few things that helped you. So you did, like, I know you didn't read too many books or take classes, but it does sound like you were really well informed. Like you felt really informed. And so like I think that's like one big thing. And then information makes people feel like they're a participant. Like, did you feel like you were a participant
Oh my gosh, yes. And like even just the, the conversations that we would have, or like I never felt like I was asking too many questions, or that it was like that if I needed more. And I remember at one point I said, okay, but what does this mean? And you said, I don't know, but I'm going to look into it. Right. Like it was always like, I always felt like I had your time and Mel's time too. Like I always felt like my questions were valid, and that my fears were valid, and that they weren't dismissed. I never felt dismissed. Like, oh, it'll be fine. Or, okay, well, it's done now. Like it always felt like it was like this, like it was a conversation that just never ended, which was so great. And there was just, yeah, I always knew how to get answers. And even if there were no answers, that at least it was a conversation, and that I was never dismissed ever, which now that I'm thinking of it, like I can't even imagine how that would happen. Like it just doesn't make sense. But it was just such a conversation every time. It was lovely.
Did we debrief your birth, like in the postpartum? Like, did we sit down and just like like, did you have your questions from your birth, and then, because it's really hard to do like right after birth.
Yeah. I think I know that when I came back with Alice, we actually talked about Tessa's birth, like when I was pregnant with Alice, and sort of let's just talk about it again, even though I'm sure we talked about it a bunch of times, but it was sort of like as a prelude to, okay, now we're getting ready for Alice's birth. Let's talk again about Tessa's birth, so we can just, have it, okay, what did we get from this? Okay, remember when that happened? Like it was like we were all just getting back to the same page again. Like, and like, okay, this is the piece that's important, right? Like, okay, and because this happened, like I still had my own worries, but it was, okay, I'm sharing them, so we can manage them together, right? Like it was really good. It was like, this is like a summary of like when you watch a new episode of TV, it's like last week on, it was like, okay, let's talk about what happened last time so that we can better inform, or at least help everyone feel kind of just at the same place for this one. Like it was really, yeah, that continuity was just everything. I can't even imagine we're going to an OB and being like, this happened to me last time. And, or happened last time, not to me, but it happened last time. I feel like it would have been a much different conversation. Okay, we're going to make sure we avoid that. We're going to do X, Y, and Z. Like, I feel like it would have been managed differently if we didn't have that continuity, because what I needed was not necessarily, okay, make sure we don't do this and we need different intervention. It was just a conversation. I wasn't looking like, make sure this never happens again. And it was never about that. It was,
yeah. Sometimes there are things like, just for another person's kind of birth story, sometimes there are things that we do associate with like an outcome that wasn't desired. For some people it is important for them to avoid the thing that was associated with the outcome. So I just want to tell the person that if you need to do that, have that conversation with your people. The other thing that I was going to say, that it's made it sound like the processing of your birth, you felt like you had a team and that you were part of the team. Yeah.
Oh yeah. It wasn't like you over there managing it and telling me things. It was very much we were making decisions together. And it was, sometimes it would be like, I need this information to be able to make this decision. And Leanne has that information. Okay, right on. Sorry. So I need that, but it was never Leanne is the keeper of the information, and she is the decider. And yeah, I sometimes it like my goal was to avoid a medical induction again, first of all, because it was so painful that I didn't want to do it again. But it wasn't because the medical induction caused these things. It was just, I would prefer to avoid that again. So we made a plan. We had a fantastic plan, and it was, okay, this is how we're going to move through things. And it was informed, but it wasn't from fear. It was, I would like to avoid these things, but not because I am scared of them, just because yeah, it's a preference. I don't want those things if we can avoid it.
Yeah.
And that was a conversation every single time, which was, and it was based on information. It wasn't based on fear. It was, this would be the ideal.
Yeah. I also want to point out that your pregnancy with Alice also wasn't perfect.
No, and it wasn't. It's funny. I sort of make it seem like it was. It wasn't. No, I had gestational diabetes, which I really didn't love. I think, and maybe because of everything that happened with Tessa, I was like, I would just love if there were no other factors involved, right? That it was just, and she was my accidental home birth, which was so perfect. And it was the exact same medical intervention, but it was absolutely different, but the exact same, right? Like it was the same care, but it was at home and not a hospital without, but it was the same in it was the same, even though it was completely different. And she wanted to be born at home.
Yeah.
We joke. She was cozy. Tessa wouldn't come out. She was happy inside. Alice was like, I like my house. I don't want to go anywhere else. We will come here. And I've never seen a more calm and collected person in my life than you, coming up the stairs, hearing me push and me trying to convince you that we should go to the hospital.
I realize that this is what I used to do every day. Like twice a week.
And I didn't want to go to the hospital because I didn't think we weren't safe. I think in my mind, I was like, I'm going to get that epidural. Like, we still have time. And they're like, you don't have time to make it to the car. And you were just so wonderfully calm. And I think you were like, oh, home birth. Great. Okay. Like, it's perfect. Let's go.
Yeah. The only thing that can help is get your baby out. There was one more thing. Oh yeah, I just wanted to say that the importance of forming your birth team. And I know Chandra is just saying midwifery care, and of course, if you're inclined to have midwives, like, go for it. But it just make sure that you feel really intuitively, like that you're picking your team intuitively, and that you feel supported by them. The team is such a huge aspect of what makes you feel supported after, whether your birth is perfect and ticky boom, like dear backyard birth, whatever people think is normal, I don't know. And then, or whether you have a more difficult birth and maybe an outcome that wasn't perfect, who is there to support you through both? So there's that aspect as well. The other question I wanted to ask you, Chandra, is, like, did you do? I'm just thinking of people who sometimes they do see things as trauma, and like, what did you do to help? Like, did you go to therapy? Did you journal? Did you meditate? Like,
yeah,
what helped you?
That's such a great question, and I think every human could benefit from therapy. So I was actually already in therapy, and it was during one of these sessions. And so my therapist had said to me, she said, when you go through a birth trauma, and I was like, what's a birth trauma? Like, what are you talking about? And this was like 6 months later. And I was like, birth trauma? I didn't go through birth trauma. Like, everything is fine. Like, I didn't realize it at first. And then once, like, it was sort of explained to me, like, no, this is the definition of birth trauma. I was like, oh, okay, that might actually explain a few things, because I think I was still in like survival mode at that point. And Tessa didn't sleep. She was a wonderful baby who never slept. And then we were still sort of in this unknown. So I was in survival mode, I think, from newborn stage, right? Like, it wasn't like I was living in fear or what have you. I was just trying to get through. So that really helped me to actually to understand, like, no, that this is what happened. I didn't know that. It was so helpful then to be like, oh, okay. And then to sort of process that and talk about that. And then when Alice was coming, we were very intentional with the plans that we made. We knew that after everything that happened with with Tessa, we were very isolated as well in just the way that things happened. So we were very purposeful with like, we're gonna have different supports this time. We're gonna make sure we build our community and that we have all these great things. And we were so purposeful, and we had Tessa in daycare very purposely because it was like, that's gonna help us. Like, we had all these things lined up. And then COVID happened. So Alice was born a month into COVID. So everything got thrown out the window, which is too bad, but we were so prepared to help ourselves to not go through sort of the same type of things again. It didn't happen. It was COVID, but it was fine. But it's so interesting. And just while I'm thinking about this, so after Tessa, everyone sort of, oh my gosh, what happened? How did that happen? Why did that happen? And she was, hospital, the interventions. And then with Alice, she was born at home, accidental home birth. And the reaction was the exact same. Oh my God, why did you have a home birth? Why didn't you go to the hospital? Why didn't the midwives take you to the hospital after she was born? And it was, no, this is what midwives do and are meant to do. And they are fully trained and they want to be doing this, but it wasn't pushed on us, right? Like, it wasn't like you were like, you need a home birth. It was funny. It was the exact same reaction to two massively different births. No, this is okay. And this is good. And it's not a bad thing that it happened. It is a thing. But it's not bad. It's not I don't need to go to the hospital. Birth is a medical thing that happens. But it doesn't need to be in a hospital. And sometimes it does need to be in a hospital, but the way that it happened with Alice, it was like textbook home birth, aside from the accidental piece. But the reaction was identical. And I even had one person say, oh my God, do you need me to drive you to the hospital? I said, no, we're good. I'm just letting you know that baby is here. Like, why haven't you gone yet? I'll come and get you. Like, it sounds like no one is taking care of you. And that like you aren't being cared for. So no, like we're good. Like everything is good.
Right. It sounds like it's our birth culture that we have to find fault maybe, and we have to and that whatever it is, it's an emergency. There's like an aspect,
yes.
Like there are some emergencies in birth sometimes.
Absolutely.
But, and like that's why we've evolved to ask and call for help, and then it turned. Like, even though I don't like our history of how we've medicalized birth, but there is an aspect to getting care, and there are some benefits to some intervention, not to what we're doing today, but there are, so like at least from my perspective. And where was I going with this? As I forget. So you did therapy.
Yeah, therapy, and like that, I think every human could benefit from therapy. So that was actually really helpful. And we gave ourselves the time to sort of, so it took Tessa until she was 4 years to know that she was totally fine. But it was around 2.5 years when we sort of got like, we weren't quite done with the neonatal follow-up program and all the different interventions and the follow-ups that they were doing. But we were at a place where it was, we're not looking for a reason as to why this happened. That was never the goal, but it was, she's okay. We're still gonna follow for another 1.5 years, but we're okay. And that's sort of, B and I were able to sort of breathe and say like, okay, we can sort of breathe for the first time in a little while, and that Tessa is okay. And we knew she was okay the entire time. It wasn't about that. It was just, is there any outcome that is long lasting? And we didn't know that. And so if you've ever met Tessa, I call her medically chill, because every assessment that was done, she was kind of below or kind of like in a gray zone of like, she's not really meeting these milestones. It's because she's just so chill that she was like, I don't want to do those things. And I'm totally fine to not speak into all of these things. And she was going to get there on her own. But because of the stroke, we did all these assessments and that kind of thing. And we did every intervention under the sun, which was so great. And I'm so glad we did that and that we had access to all of those things. But I think it's just her personality. But because of the stroke, of course, we were doing all these assessments, and she wasn't where you would expect someone to be. But it's because she was just so chill. It's like, I just don't want to do those things.
Sometimes that's true. So like there's a big range in like when a baby should start doing this, and like it could be a 6-month range, or and so and then if you're just like behind a little bit, that can be okay. But when you get to the behind part, it's just sometimes, like, let's say it's for not walking, sometimes it's because there's something physically wrong with your foot.
Yes.
And so sometimes, but sometimes, like, even you're just past that point, and then it starts, and then as long as there's like someone else that's like helping you assess your child.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm so glad we had that intervention and all those assessments. That wasn't a bad thing. But I imagine if she never had this stroke, no one would have batted an eye, and it would have just been like, she's taking a little bit of time before she gets there. So it's good that we had it. It's definitely, I'm so glad that we had it versus not having it. But now that we know Tessa and we know who she is, it's like, yeah, she was just exactly who she was from day one. And she was always at the very bottom of every milestone. And it was, let's give her a little bit of extra help, and let's make sure that this isn't because of the stroke, and that it is sort of part of an impact from that. But no, it's just who she was. We just didn't know that. And so we made sure.
Now you know.
Yeah.
Years later.
And if you've ever met Tessa, it's like, oh yeah, that makes perfect sense. She just didn't want to.
So I just want to say a few things, like to kind of summarize kind of what you said, like making your birth team. If you are pregnant, thinking getting pregnant, at the first visit or your next visit, even if you're 36 weeks, like go and interview your person, like ask them what made them want to be a baby catcher and what do they love about it, and just kind of like know where things come from for them. And you can even ask them like actual data from it, like what is your C-section rate? Like, so Chandra said that she wanted to avoid the C-section as much as possible, but she knew it was an option. So maybe she asked me, I don't know if you did, but maybe you asked me what my C-section rate was, because sometimes if you have a care provider that has a very high C-section rate, that can give you maybe a little pink flag, a little red flag. Maybe I'm gonna go get someone else, and I feel like I have my back and my choices, more respected from another care provider, and that's okay. And people have left my care because what I was providing wasn't what they wanted, and I'm like, that's totally okay. I jived with Chandra, but I didn't jive with, like someone else. And so, and that's okay, because like we're all like, there's a lot of care providers, and we should just see them as they're all options, and let's
absolutely
best for me.
And one part of Tessa's story that I think is important is at one point we had shared care with the OB that I know you loved working with, and I loved working with him too. And that was so helpful. And I didn't realize it could be a thing where you could do shared care between an OB and a midwife, but I was still under you, right? And it was because of those flags that we were seeing. And it was, this is okay, but let's have an OB just in case we need them. But we are still under you. And it was so perfect to have, like, and we needed that for Tessa. With Alice, we didn't have it because we didn't need it. But it's not like you were withholding care from us. Like, no, I can manage this. It's never about that. It was, what is the best care for the baby? And what are the resources we have? So you brought in an OB, and we had shared care, and it was perfect. And it was like, great. And I said, okay, but can I still, like, I still want to be under you. And that was my goal. And then even when we were talking about different kinds of outcomes, we talked about C-section because Tessa was breech for a very long time. Oh, not that long. Alice was super breech for a long time. So I was always sort of part of our, okay, this could happen. What happens if there's a C-section? And it was, so then I forget the distinction, but it was, I think the care gets transferred to the OB, but then after birth, the baby still falls under the care of the umbrella care of the midwife. Like, there's a way that the C-section still works within midwifery, where we're not just, okay, now we're gone. We're totally with OBs, which is what I never wanted. But there is a way that you help to explain to us, like, no, even if this does happen, we still get to be under your care, which was so helpful to know. So even for outcomes that maybe were our less desirable ones, they could still fit within our team, which was so nice. We didn't get like booted out of midwifery, which was really helpful to know in advance. And we knew that like at the start when I shared, I would love to avoid this. And it was absolutely, if it does happen, here's how it would look. So that was really helpful to know from the beginning. Yeah, shared care is a beautiful thing.
Yeah. The doctor I sent you is actually someone who specializes in ultrasounds as well. So that
it was very purposeful. Like it was, yeah, he was fantastic. He was great.
And the other thing is, so for the listener, midwives and GPs, and like I kind of am seeing that that GPs call themselves OBs. So just
there's FMOB providers. So it's family physicians who have that distinction in family medicine, who are OB providers. And I'm actually not sure, I don't know this. I work in the family medicine residency program. To do FMOB, I don't know that you need to do a +1, which is like a fellowship and additional training in OB. I believe in FM provider can practice. Oh, I don't actually know that to be true. All family medicine residents are trained in obstetrics. They do get OB training. They catch babies. They do all these beautiful things in their training. When they're in their family practice, some of them do FMOB, so family medicine obstetrics, but they are not obstetricians. They have a distinction in OB, but they are family physicians. Yeah. So it's if you don't know the difference, it's like it can be, and maybe in that moment, it's like I'm an OB in this moment.
I don't find that clients know the difference, like because right now I'm teaching prenatal classes, and then I realize that they call their doctors OBs, and then I know because I live here that there's a GP. But if you do have a GP or a midwife, there's always a chance that there could be a transfer of care or a shared care.
Absolutely. With someone. And with anyone, and that's with midwifery as well. That doesn't mean that it's because your care wasn't good enough, right? Like that's not
at a certain point. Sometimes we need a surgeon, or exactly. So, and then. Yes, and then even midwives have their own, midwives only do birth, right? We don't do we don't do gynecology, things like that. So there's pros and cons to all of these, but honestly, what I will always tell my clients is pick the person that loves their job. Pick the person that loves their job, and that could be a GP, that could be an OB, that could be a midwife, that to me is what I want to tell you, is pick someone who loves their job, and then just talk to them what care looks like if I have to be transferred, or
having that ahead of time was so important, knowing. And it was I had these choose your own adventures in my mind of okay, so Leanne has explained, if this happens, here's what happens, and now that we have the OB in our team, here's how this happens. And it was really helpful to know that, and to know who is my team. And when is it Leanne and then the OB, or when does who takes over what? It was so helpful to understand that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the team is so important. The continuity, if you can get it, was just such a beautiful thing. And it's so important in all aspects, I think, of medical care. But I feel in pregnancy specifically, it helps so much. It takes away so many layers. And yeah, I feel you and Mel understand so much of me as a person because of everything. And I have to sort of, not that I have to explain myself to anyone, but I feel you know me so well. And with the 2 surrogacy births, it was okay, Mel, I'm here again. We're ready. It was almost we didn't need a recap again. She was she just knew. She knew me already, and she knew. And it was just so beautiful. Yeah, I'm very, very grateful that I was able to have. So you were there for Tessa and Alice, and Mel was there for all 4, which is just, I love our stats that happened. It was, and she wasn't actually meant to be there with Tessa because her rotation was done at midnight, and Tessa was born at 2:24 a.m. So she stayed because midwives are exceptional human beings. And then with Phoebe, who is my very last one, she was not on call. And I didn't page her because I knew she wasn't on call, and she showed up anyway because of who she is. The midwife who was on call, I was I'm not going to tell her because I want to respect her boundaries. And then no, she's my boundaries don't exist today. I'm being here for this birth. That was her own choice, which was exactly who she is. And that's midwifery. And I think it was Mel who told me this. Midwifery is a calling. And I truly do believe that. And yeah, you might not drive with every midwife. So and maybe midwifery care isn't for everyone. But I think there's something so beautiful about the care that you receive, that it really does feel more like this like beautiful collaboration to birth. And it doesn't feel medicalized, even though it's all about medical care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like the person who would want to make it a hippier birth, a hippier pregnancy, there's always those that can happen too. Yeah.
Those options.
Yeah.
We could have put it at the birth center. Like there's so many different options, and you presented them all to me without a bias, like of it was like, here we could do hospital birth, we could do home birth, we can do birth center birth. And it wasn't like, well, I prefer, like, it wasn't you saying I prefer birth center because of whatever. It was like, these are the options, and then I get to choose, and I get to ask as many questions as I want. And with Tessa, it was, let's go to the hospital. With Alice, we didn't make it, but I never felt like this is unsafe. It was like, okay, I'm so glad I have a midwife in this moment, because otherwise I'd be probably calling an ambulance and birthing on the side of the road or something.
Right. That's true, I guess. Yeah.
Or maybe an OB never would have it would have been a different trajectory entirely, right? Like it never would have happened the way that it did with an OB, and that would have been okay too. But the care was so beautiful and so personal.
Yeah. It's like, honestly, I just want people to know that, like, that's the feeling of feeling supported is what would help people even in a difficult birth. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm so glad that it was you in that difficult birth, and then that it was with Alice, even though it wasn't difficult.
Yeah.
And I'm just so glad that it wasn't someone I didn't know during those moments where maybe there was some fear lingering from Tessa's birth during Alice's birth, but I had you, right? And you knew all about that, and you knew how to help me through that. Yeah, that I'm so glad it was you and not someone I didn't know.
Mm-hmm. There should be some studies on like continuity of care again. But like, and then so like, just another question to ask your team is, how does the on-call schedule work? And then does that feel good to you?
And and that's actually a really important piece. When everything was happening, it was always, okay, when are you on call and not call? And there have been two different models. Like there was shared care at one point that I had with Phoebe and Freya. And then it was different. The way that the call worked was different with Tessa and Alice.
Yeah.
So, but it was always a conversation of, okay, when are you on call? Because for me, I wanted it to be you. And if it hadn't been you, that would have been okay. Another midwife would have been there and would have provided excellent care. It wasn't about, you're the only one who's going to take care of me. But it was just, isn't it so much nicer if it is you? Because we have we've had the most time together, and another midwife would have been fine. But it was like, okay, you're not on call this weekend. Okay, that's good for me to know. Obviously, baby can come anytime. And then with Alice, when it was, okay, let's try to get this baby out. When are you on call? Okay, perfect. So let's make a plan based on that. And we did the same thing with Freya and Phoebe, my beautiful Suro babies. That was a really important piece. And it was, okay, Mel, when are you on call? Okay, you go off call tonight at 7. Okay, when do you go back on call, right? Like it was a very helpful conversation. And I knew who was always going to be covering, and who, if it wasn't, this person, that it was this person. But it was really helpful to know, yes, how is the call shared? And what are the different options for who could be there, depending on what day it happens or doesn't happen. So that's actually a really helpful piece too. Who's going to be there at my birth?
Yeah. Okay. Do you have advice for women who are trying to get pregnant or are pregnant, just around, what helped you?
One thing that, and again, I work with lots of fantastic family physicians and residents. a lot of them being in the system, they don't realize midwifery is self-referral. So the second that you are pregnant, as soon as I saw that pink line, I called especially the second time, knowing how in demand and how quickly sometimes the midwifery slots can fill up. Midwifery is self-referral, so you don't need a referral to. You can just call and say, "Hey, I'm pregnant," like, and you can get in with midwifery care. And I don't know how it works with OB. Like, I don't know if you need a referral or not to be with an OB, or if it's also self-referral. But yeah, that was actually really like empowering to be like, I don't need to first go to my own family physician, and if you don't have one, right, then it's like, well, what do I even do? Or if I, so that was really helpful, self-referral. Yeah, look, I mean, maybe look into it, and just, is it for me? And it might not be for you, and that's totally fine too. Like, there's no right or wrong. It's whatever works for you. But maybe just know. And this actually is another piece that a lot of folks think, that you have to pay for midwifery care. I didn't pay anything out of pocket for every single time I did it, including the surrogacies. I believe it's funded by the ministry. Actually, I don't know. But it is not like it feels like a very special VIP service, but it is not like an elective. Like, if you were to do an elective surgery, you may have to pay for that. Like, it's not a service that you are.
Sound like plastic surgery.
Yeah, it is a standard of care. So yeah, there's no extra payment, because that might for some folks who think that, they might, I can't do that because I can't afford it, or whatever it is, or I don't want to afford it. That's different than a doula. A doula is someone you pay for. A midwife is not someone that you pay for. But yeah, self-referral, and just look into it, and maybe it's not for you, and that's okay too. But yeah, like you came to my house, like I didn't have to go anywhere. It was the most beautiful thing.
After your birth, I don't do that.
Sorry, after, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that's true. Sorry, that's important. After birth, like the 3-day visit, like there's a certain, and you would always, do you want me to come to your house? Like it was never, I'm coming to your house. It was, and you came to Chio, like it was such beautiful care. There's so many good things of it that maybe not everyone that's not their cup of tea. And yeah, if you're trying to get pregnant, I mean, that's a whole other can of worms. I feel like we could have a whole conversation on that.
I'm thinking that I'm going to do an addition to this episode of like what helps people prepare. Evidence. That's what I think I'm going to do. Yeah.
And I think, and like along the same lines, there's a lot of like fear mongering in that, like, and I don't know that folks mean it, but I saw this thing on whatever Instagram the other day. It was, we had a successful IVF transfer in that case. Here's what we did to make it work, because the last one didn't work. So here's what we did. And it was the things that they sort of listed. Said, I don't know that those are the things that made it work. And maybe they did. Maybe they didn't, but we don't know. And anyway, that's a whole other conversation, but doing X, Y, and Z and that kind of thing, it may have been what helped your body to have a successful transfer, but it may not have been. And just to say, here's why it worked is sort of a bigger statement to say, here's why I was able to get pregnant. And especially when it's IVF, like that's, especially if, you're someone who, has had struggles getting pregnant, right? You might see that and think, okay, I need to do those things or I won't get pregnant. So yeah, and I don't know that I'm the best person to say, here's what you need to do.
You actually kind of, so like my thing that I want to like share with the world, and you did it with one of your IVF pregnancies, and you talked about it in the other episode, is you followed your intuition.
Yes. And I think that's what it is. And it's not, okay, I need to do X, Y, and Z because that's how I'm going to get pregnant. And and if I don't do this, I'm not going to. And yeah, it's whatever. And for those folks that I saw, maybe that is how they follow their intuition. And I just think it's important that everyone is informed in their own way. And it's, if you don't take this estrogen and have your LH surge by tomorrow, then it's not going to work. And it's, well, why? right? And okay, and so yeah, and that's something we talked about in the other podcast, of just sort of informed decisions and why, and just and maybe and in a different situation someone else would choose to take the estrogen. That's totally fine too, as long as you feel like you have that information to make that decision, and it's your decision. It's not a decision that someone is telling you you need to do out
Yeah.
of fear. If you don't do this, this won't work.
Yeah. This is a common thread just in the entire episode here, is so the decisions you made, they weren't from a place like of fear. There was no urgency stuff going from one
No,
pregnancy to
never.
another. And so I hope that this just shows in people the importance of, okay, maybe something did happen that was scary at one point, either to my sister, to my mom, or
Yeah,
myself, but can I, whenever we listen to our intuition, there's no urgency, and it doesn't feel like I have to. It just feels like it's
yeah,
the right thing.
that's exactly what it is. This is the right thing. And it might not be perfect, but it doesn't need to be perfect, right? And even within that decision, like this is still the right decision, even though it is not there. It doesn't mean the outcome is going to be perfect, right? And you just have to be comfortable with your decision. And if you love OBs, that's fantastic. You should go and you should be with an OB, and that's what's going to help you feel comfortable. And that's all that matters. But yeah, it shouldn't be, and you shouldn't choose a midwife because it's like, I have to pick a midwife because they're like, it shouldn't be that either. It should just be what is the thing that is going to help you to feel the most confident and comfortable, and then go with that, and don't do it because it's, what do you mean you have a midwife? Why aren't you going to the hospital? Like, your midwife doesn't know anything. Like, no, I trust this person, and that's all that matters for me. And that's all you need to just be certain of yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a quote, and it's something like knowledge with a mix of knowledge and a mix of love makes wisdom. And
How
so
cute.
it's something like that. And I'm just like, okay, like people do need knowledge, but there's more than just that, there's, and yeah, so like, anyway, so I hope that this influences people, and just like, we don't know what's going to happen with birth. It could be, and then so what's going to help me either way.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not about creating, this perfect outcome. It's just, how am I going to feel so confident? And like, with everything that happened after Tessa, it was like, I have 100% trust in my care team and throughout the thing. And that was the most important piece, especially when everything happened. It was still having that trust and that knowledge that I was being so well taken care of, that made every difference, I think.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's like knowledge is there to empower us, because it's true, like you guys know, if you're listening to my podcast, I'm not really happy with everything that we're doing in the healthcare system. But like like how, if like Chandra was saying, she wanted to avoid the C-section, so how can we do that? So knowledge of like hydration, and knowledge of movement, and knowledge of rest, and knowledge of like all those things. So yeah. Chandra, is there anything else you want to say to someone who's listening, preparing for birth?
Yeah, I just think listening to your body, and just yes, of course, it's a big thing, and it hurts a lot. But it's yeah, don't let others put their fears onto you, and their stories onto you, because yes, there's things that happen, and of course things where we're so grateful for medical intervention. But just, yeah.
It's sometimes also knowing that like medical intervention, but also having a care provider that uses medical interventions not in a over,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So just, yeah, don't let others color your decisions. And as long as you feel good about your decisions, that's all that should matter. So just sometimes, yeah, less is more, blocking out that noise.
Yeah. There's a doula, and she teaches in her class, she's like, that person that has that thing to say to you, at the grocery store, that's not a message from the universe. That's just them needing to blurt out something. So, yeah.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
less is more sometimes. And it's,
Mhm.
yeah, I try to be mindful when I share Tessa's story. Sometimes I'm like, you know what, let me share my story after you have your birth, and we can just chat about all our births together. Sometimes maybe that's the most helpful time to
Yeah.
hear it for someone.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Totally. Yeah. That is the right thing to do sometimes. Yeah. Thank you a lot, Chandra, for being on again.
It's so nice to chat with you always. And like, I feel like we have this beautiful friendship. And whenever I talk about like my stories, I'm like, oh, my midwives, like, but, you know, like it's Leanne, like it's we, you're not just a midwife, right? You were my midwife, but you're so much more than that now, and always were.
Yeah. See your care provider as a human. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
What a wild thought. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. No one who's above you, no one who's under you, like none of
No.
that, just human. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so important. Yeah,
Mm.
it is. Yeah, we're all over here together on the same team.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, thanks, Chandra.